Hey, my name's Heather, and we're going to take a look at the Lomi home composter. Now, first I want to establish how I ended up with a product like this and what my living situation is. So I live on an active homestead, and I keep chickens, turkeys, ducks, quail, goats, rabbits, dogs, cats, snakes. So I've got tons of a garden, a black soldier fly larva farm. So I've got a lot of different things going around here. And that's why I was so surprised when Lomi offered me a free composter to try. And by the way, I'm going to be using composter because I feel like that's kind of what they're known as. And it's the term that Lomi itself used to use in the past. But the end product is not compost, and Lomi even says that. So I'm saying composter just conversationally, but just know that this is not technically a composter, and we'll get into that later. So, like I said, Lomi reached out to me because of my Instagram account, because that's where my main social media presence is, and offered me this composter in exchange, for a reel. And I was so excited to try it because I, like you, probably had seen this product everywhere, and it seemed so sleek and cool and interesting and useful. So I was very eager to take advantage of that. Now, a lot of people warned me not to participate in gifted collaborations like that because it's just, you are kind of on the hook for producing a reel even if you don't like the product, and I'm not comfortable with that because honesty and integrity of course are the most important thing for me and for a ton of creators. So I, in hindsight, probably should not have participated in a gifting program. However, I was so eager to try it, and I was just so excited that they offered it to me that I said, yes, I'll create a reel for this product. Now, I received the product and I immediately had questions and a few concerns, so I reached out to Lomi 3 different times and I never got any response. I did get an auto-generated email giving me a list of talking points for this reel that I was supposed to create, but no one would ever respond to me at all about any of these questions or concerns that I had. And so I decided not to post a reel, and I've waited, it's been about 6 months now, and I'm going to post this on YouTube, just sharing my opinion. So again, I was gifted this product. I am in no other way affiliated with them. I don't get anything whether you do or don't decide to purchase one. That's just how I ended up with it. Now, if you're not familiar with what a Lomi is, it's this super sleek countertop appliance, and it's meant for all of your food scraps and food waste to go into it, and then it churns it up and heats it and I guess not really compacts it, but dries it out and just creates this dirt-like substance. And it's, again, not compost, it's just everything dried out and broken down. And you couldn't get the same thing through dehydrating and throwing it in your oven. I think there's more to it than that, moisture control, and I don't really understand the specifics of how this product works. But what you're ending up with is this dirt-like product instead of food scraps. Now, a lot of the benefits that they list on their website and that they market this as eco-friendly for are that you'll take these food scraps that would otherwise end up in a landfill, and they'd be creating these emissions because they're broken down anaerobically, or they're just not getting used, and so you're preventing that. You're not having food scraps sitting in your garbage, getting all smelly. It's a smaller product, so even if you threw the Lomi dirt back in the garbage, at least it's taking up less space in a landfill. And then sort of the add-on benefits past the eco benefits that they talk about are that you could use this product that comes out of the Lomi in your garden plants or in your composter or in your potted plants or whatever. It's like a garden supplement. They do offer, they're called Lomi pods, and you can buy these for additional fee, and you put those in the composter with your food scraps, and that adds, I'll put it on the screen, whatever it adds, but it's something that makes it more compost-like. You're paying for this product, and then you're buying this additional product to make it closer to what they initially marketed it as. Now, people do generate a ton of food scraps and food waste, but for us, we have, like I said, chickens, turkeys, ducks, quail, rabbits, goats, and then all of our household pets. And so food scraps were never an issue for us to begin with. And that's why I was so surprised that Lomi offered this to me. So all of our edible scraps go to one of those animals that we have. And anything inedible, like potato peels, things that the chickens wouldn't eat, or the rabbits or the goats. Those we're gonna put in our black soldier fly larva farm, which is just a tote with a couple little PVC pieces. They're super easy. I'm gonna make a video about it in like a couple weeks. But anyways, you can look it up. They're so easy to build and they're so useful. Black soldier fly larva farm, even if you don't use the larva to feed like your poultry, what's generated out of that is way more compost like. It's still not compost, but it's way more compost like than what's going to come out of this machine. It can be built, I mean, pretty much in any backyard. I don't know. I mean, the huge incentive for that is if you have poultry, but even if not, I still think it's useful and a good way to manage scraps that doesn't cost like $600. It costs like, well, for sure under 50. I don't know exactly what the price breakdown is. I'll cover that in the video coming up. So back to how the Lomi works. So you're going to take your scraps, whatever it is. There are many things that can go in there just like in any amount, like however much you want. There are some things that can go in a little amount and then other things that can't. Like I wouldn't put an avocado pit in it, or I wouldn't put bones in it and things like that. To see if the cost would be justified for you, you need to think about like what food scraps you're actually generating and if the Lomi could actually accommodate those. I'll put a list up on the screen of like the always, sometimes never breakdown. I mean, it's what you'd expect. It's like, you know, greens and soft fruits and stuff like that. You could go however much you wanted. A little bit, like little bits of meat or dairy, and then some other like probably like avocado peels and things like that. And then there's never things, and that's like the bones and the pits and things like that. Benefits that I really enjoyed, and I've been using it since I received it just because I've kind of been like wanting to have a solid opinion about it before I shared it, and it does what they say it does on their website. It for sure, like no questions asked, does that. It does not do what I think it's conventionally thought of to do, in that it doesn't generate compost, but it does for sure break down food. It does not stink. I've put like banana peels and stuff that would typically start stinking like really quickly in it and left it for a couple days, and they have charcoal filters on it and it doesn't stink. And that's super nice. You don't get fruit flies, you don't get like house flies, which is a huge benefit, especially where we live. It's just like flies are a constant battle. And then it does, and then it, you know, you run a cycle, and what you come out with is this way more compacted, not scent neutral, but definitely not gross smelling. I mean, it's like kind of, I wish I could pinpoint what it smells like, and it's familiar, but and it's not bad. It's not like compost or dirt. It's, I don't know. If I think about it before I post it, I'll put it up on the screen, but I have not been able to place it in the time that I've had it. But it's a scent that's not bad, not great, but totally better than food sitting around would be, or food sitting in a garbage would be. Now, at the time I received it, and they run sales and things, but the model that I received cost $600. That's an incredible amount of money for many people, including my family. So this is not something that I would ever have purchased for myself. And I've been thinking about who would be able to justify a cost like this. And the only scenarios in which I would find this to be useful are if you're in a very suburban or urban home. So I'm talking like teeny tiny backyard or apartment or like condo, like no yard situation. But I also think like requirement of that is that you would also be super into gardening, whether that be in community gardens or like patio, balcony gardens, or even just like potted plants inside. Because I get when they're saying like, oh, well, if you put it in the landfill, it takes up less space. But like, really, is that worth $600 plus all the energy that's being used to run it? I think that for it to be justified, you would have to have significant expendable income. You would have to be very concerned about very specific environmental problems, you know, like the emissions from like decomposing anaerobic food in a landfill, and less concerned about other energy sources. Like, we're on power generated by a dam, and that in and of itself is like, do I want to use, you know, this is like a controversial thing, but if like, what do you feel about the energy even generated from a dam? You have to meet a ton of different criteria, I think, for it to be worth it. If you have any amount of chickens at all, even like 3, for sure not worth it. And then if you have tons of animals like we do, there's just no use for it, because every time I use it, it's food I'm consciously choosing not to give to my animals. And I don't think that it's significant enough that it's like increasing my food bill for my animals, but it's like, why would I not want to give these like squishy cherries to my chickens instead of like throwing them in this composter? And this isn't meant to like talk negatively about the company. I think the product itself is like really interesting and cool, and I think it's well executed. I think it performs what it's meant to do. I just think that the price point is so high and the reward is, for the average person, pretty low, and for somebody in my living situation just like non-existent, that it's hard for me to see how it's justified. Now, they do say that they want to bring the cost down as time goes on. It's a new technology and it's developing, but from what I've seen, the price is just like increasing with every new model, and I don't know what the actual breakdown of that is or what their goals long term are, but it just doesn't seem to me to have enough benefit for the average person to justify it. I guess on Instagram, if anybody had any questions they wanted me to address, and a couple of them were, if I can remember them, is it loud? It's you can hear it, but it's certainly not loud. It's for sure more quiet than a dishwasher or like a washing machine or a dryer or any other appliance you'd have going. Now, I kept it in my mudroom, so it wasn't like right countertop as you see in some of like the Instagram posts. I already covered that it doesn't smell. That was something that some people asked, is if there's food sitting in it, like what does it smell like? And the biggest question that I got was just, do you think it's worth it? And if you haven't gotten my opinion at this point in the video, I personally don't think it's worth it. I think that, like I said, you know, maybe if you're in an apartment and you're super into gardening and you're super worried about landfill emissions, then maybe it's like a fun gift. But I find it to be a novelty, and I think there's so many options, no matter your living situation, to deal with food waste. I think anybody that keeps poultry should have a black soldier fly larva farm. It's so low maintenance, so affordable to start, so easy. It's just like, it's like a win-win-win-win-win. And I'm a huge advocate for people raising animals. I'm a huge advocate for quail in any living situation. Those are so affordable and like so versatile. Chickens for anybody, of course, that can do it. Rabbits for meat. Like so useful, so easy, so affordable, so accessible. So I advocate for any of those options. Animals of any kind. I have such an easy time justifying animals in most living situations. Like black soldier fly larva farm, those like compost, like Turner things. I think those fit in a ton of places. So I just think there's so many options, and I don't want people to spend a bunch of money. Like maybe in a couple years, if they become really affordable, then I think it could maybe be a useful thing to more people. But right now, the price point, I just don't find to be worth it. I would love to know what you've heard about the Lomi, and if you've been interested in it, and if you have any questions about it. I've been using it for 6 months, so I feel like I have a pretty good handle on how it works and what it puts out. So I'd love to chat about it in the comments. If you've never watched any of my videos before, my name's Heather. I'm most active over on Instagram, and I'm just kind of moving over to YouTube, and I'm having so much fun, and I'm going to continue posting content, hunting, hiking, foraging, and farming. So I hope you stick around, and I hope to see you in the next one. Thank you for watching.